better man. And it wasn't until later on in my life that actually during my undergrad years, I really drawn a little bit nearer to Islam. And in graduate school, I've been Muslim for a few years now, and I accepted Islam during graduate school. And so it was a major shift between people who had known me throughout that process, because halfway through I became Muslim. So a lot of the things, going out to drink, partying, doing all of this clubbing and having social gatherings, like that, a lot of that stuff I stopped doing. And I want to say accepting Islam, at that stage in my life was something I didn't see coming. What I did see was that my life was slowly starting to change. For one reason or another, I decided that, I want to stop drinking. I think I drink a little bit too much. I hang out and I party a little bit too much. I think my friends are into some things that I'm starting to grow out of. And slowly but surely, I found myself letting people go. Spending less time with people, socializing in very different ways, and I had no idea really why. Which is interesting, because at that point where I was living while I was going to graduate school, I actually lived across the street from a masjid. So I could hear the adhan every time I was in my house doing something wrong. And it used to make me feel so guilty, because I knew people were doing something right? And that's what drew me to Islam, knowing that people were doing something right, and that I myself had the power to do that. So I think that's it. I'm going to stop now. Thank you, man.
So, if you guys take like 2 minutes to introduce yourselves, right? I don't know, man. It's okay. I used to be in a gang. I'm not gonna say anything. I already got Sheikh Sahib mad at me for saying the drive-by thing. Yeah, right. Pow pow.
Matrix.
Yeah, look.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Will Caldwell. I'm a master's student in religious studies here at NYU. I converted about 5 years ago when I was a senior in college. I was actually at Hebrew University in Jerusalem studying Hebrew when I decided to convert. There's always a question in my mind as to exactly how that happened. I'm not too sure. The best answer I've ever heard to, like, why did you convert, was given by Sheikh Abdul Hakim Marad. And he said it's simply because, Allah is very generous, He's very kind. And I think that's always exactly the right answer. I can often tell you about the circumstances around why I converted, what was going on in my life around that time, but as to why or exactly how, I'm often left without words. So for now, I think I'll just leave it at that until we get into more of the details and the circumstances of how we converted. Thanks.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. My name is Gareth Bryant. Contrary to what you see on the label, Musa Bryant. Musa is what people call me. Gareth is my name. So I became Muslim when I was 15, and this reversion happened in a time when in my life when I had a lot of low self-esteem issues. My father had died when I was 8, and there were a lot of things that happened in my home life that were volatile, that as a young person without a father, I didn't have the tools to deal with it. And one of the things that I was looking for was, validation just of my own existence because of certain things that were happening. And one thing that I can say is that, I can honestly say, thinking back, is that Allah always protected me just by virtue of the fact that He made me Muslim. And one of the ways that He chose to protect me is that I never had any atheistic concept. I always believed in the oneness of a God. It's just that I didn't know how to please Him or worship Him properly. And I grew up in a Christian household, but many of the things referring to the theology of Christianity, I saw as utter nonsense. And I was always a free thinker. And mashallah, I was a free thinker. So I would ask different questions on a theological level, and people were never able to give me the answers that I wanted or needed. They weren't able to give me the right answers, flat out, because there are no right answers. So that was one of the main things that propelled, it served as a catalyst for me to become Muslim. And there were a lot of things that happened in my life, like during like my high school years, because unfortunately I wasn't very religious. And there were a lot of things that happened in my life that made me really, really reflect about which directions in my life that I should take. Like, for example, like being shot at. Like, once you're shot at, like, that's something that really makes you think, like, I need to really, like, go back to the drawing board and, like, think this thing over. So that happened to me a couple of times, and mashallah, it hasn't happened since, so I must be doing something right. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic to my brother Jay.
My name is Jay Dabi. I became Muslim 4 years ago. I came from a Hindu background, Hindu family. Grew up trying to find God and trying to figure out religion, and I was trying to practice Hinduism as best as I could, and then I couldn't find the answers from my family or by reading books. It was very confusing for me. So then I hopped on a plane and went to India for the first time so I could see it firsthand, and I came back even more lost. So then I started reading. Well, my background is I'm a DJ and a music producer. So I used to go to this record store since I was like 14 years old, and the guys that run the record store are Muslim. I didn't know that. So then I started telling him, yeah, I just came back from India and I'm lost, and so he's like, oh, here's a Quran. I was like, wow. So he gave me a Quran, and then the Quran is sitting on my table. I didn't really open it. It was on the side of the table. And I knew some of the rules, like, keep it at higher level and don't put it at low. So I would leave it there. And then one of my friends who's not a Muslim came over one day. He's like, yo, bro, what you doing with that book? And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, don't read that book. People who read that book convert, man. So, so from then, I was like, wow, what's so powerful about this book? So I started reading it. And slowly and surely, and I mean, I'm going to fast forward because you ask a convert how he converted, and we'll just talk your ear off, I'm telling you. So fast forward, I came across the NYU podcasts, and then I noticed that instead of listening to music on my iPod, I would be listening to Khalid all the time. Like, I would listen to his podcast, and then one day I had the courage to just email him and say, I don't know, I'm feeling these things. I just want to meet up with you one day. We finally, after months of trying to fit into a schedule, I met him at the NYU Old Center, and I just took my shahada right there. Wow. We'll get into more in the future.
So really, really quick, when Jay came to take his shahada at the IC, I actually used to listen to Jay's CDs when I was growing up. He used to mix Bollywood songs, and his name was Little J. And I had his CDs. He was like Bollywood's finest, Little J, whatever.
New York's finest.
And he came to take his shahada, and after he was done, I called up my sister, and I was like, I just gave Little J his shahada. Like crazy. Inshallah. Sorry, Lisa.
Hi, assalamu alaikum. My name is Lisa. I'm a senior here at NYU. Hopefully, inshallah, graduating in May. Similarly to Jay, I was raised in a, I guess, Hindu background. My mom's really Jain, but like, it's like all the same thing eventually. Yeah, my parents weren't really practicing. My mom's my extended family on both sides was more practicing, so I wasn't raised in like a religious household. But there was this stigma, I guess, of Islam and like Muslims that was just kind of like not spoken about but understood. And so, yeah, I just grew up with this concept that like Islam was just something that was like in the world, and I should just kind of try to stay away from it. So Islam is really the last thing that I thought I would ever be involved with. But yes, I was in high school when I started to question my religion. I didn't really understand Hinduism and what it was about, and so, like Jay, I tried to like figure things out, but essentially I couldn't find the answers that I was looking for. And then when I got to college, I was even more confused, and I joined our gospel choir. And so I was this Hindu girl singing about Jesus in the gospel choir for a while. And that confused people. And then throughout that process, about halfway through my sophomore year, I had been like researching things online, and I found Islam, and I was intrigued, and I learned more and more about it, and alhamdulillah, I took my shahada halfway through my sophomore year, and for a little bit, I was a Muslim girl singing in the gospel choir, but yeah, so I'll talk more about it later, inshallah.